Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Homecomings podcast. It's good to be back today, honestly, for this recording. I feel like it's been a good while since I've done a solo pod recording, and I have a few good life updates for this one, and I'm trying really to decide where to start and dig in. Maybe, I'll talk about post-vacation feels, as I just got back from a beautiful vacation in Colombia, reflections and realizations from that. But maybe a good place to start is just, the mention and update that as of the recording of this podcast episode, which will be going live next week. So you're getting this very timely and presently, if we want to say that. I had tried to record a solo episode a couple weeks ago. It was in the midst of, I want to say, just processing one of my latest episodes that I shared. I forget if it was the last one with Julie, if you've been, listening to the pod and have listened in on that chat, or the one with Susanna before. But yeah, it was just, I get called to do these solos very spontaneously and sporadically. And I remember jumping on the mic thinking like, maybe I'll talk into the mic and share some updates, and kind of wasn't feeling it. And then so beautifully and serendipitously, my camera stopped recording and completely logged me off of my podcast platform. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I wasn't meant to talk on the mic today, and just scrapped it. I think I was 15 minutes into my solo rant and I was like, this isn't happening. And I knew I was going on vacation. And just figured, you know what, when I come back, I'll probably be refreshed and ready to record another episode, which I'm feeling right now as of today. So it's good to be back on the mic, and it's good to just be, tuning in and sharing whatever comes up for me in this chat. Again, I don't think I've approached any of these solo episodes with an agenda. And recently with my guest interviews, I've been trying to just show up without an agenda as well. And so we'll see what comes out of this one, guys. To kick off, I guess I'll just start and share number one. I hope, however this recording is finding you, I hope you're doing well. Whether it's on your morning walk, on your drive to work, or doing whatever mindless or intentional activity that calls to you in this season of life. I'm happy to be plugged into your ear and for you to be tuning in and listening. So let's jump in. Where to begin? Well, I guess the first update that I can share is maybe I'll just share how I'm feeling. How I'm arriving today on the recording of this episode is just very content. I don't know. I'm fresh off of vacation. And if you guys have ever taken a trip that was just so special and impactful for you, that first day when you come back and you're just in that in-between zone of still feeling those post-vacation feels, but also trying to plant both feet on the ground back at home. That's kind of where I'm at. Now, I don't know, maybe for some or many of you listening, post-vacation feels for you could be really heavy, because a lot of us like to use vacations and travels as an escape. So when you come back into your everyday, you're like, what the heck? Those Sunday scary types of feelings. And you're dreading going back to work and routine. I talk a lot about this in some of my previous solo episodes. I talk a lot about this topic, especially with I think it was my episode 3 or 4. We'll definitely plug it in the show notes. But the recording conversation that I had with my mentor, Ashley, about this, where she shares just this mind-boggling perspective about travel that I've started to embrace as of late, but really it was her perspective being shared on her and her partner, Patrick, essentially selling everything, backpacking across the world to Asia, and really sharing this totally, I will say different idea of what we typically as humans maybe tend to think about when we think about traveling, of it being this amazing, radically expansive, fulfilling adventure that you're on. And Ashley peeling back the curtain on, it's not as glamorous as you might think, because it stirs up this discomfort. It stirs up these feelings that you might be avoiding, or, when you get out of your routine, a lot of stuff can start to come up as you recognize you lean on a lot of these rituals and creature comforts that you may not have when you're in a foreign country. For some people, this could be good because they like change. For others, this could be really unnerving because they like their consistency and routine and all of that. So my perspective on travel has changed so much in the last couple of years, coming off of the heels of my world travels, where I spent 2 months in Spain, followed by a month in India doing my yoga teacher training, followed by a couple incredible weeks in Lisbon at the tail end of 2023 into 2024. Coming off of those 3-4 months of solo traveling and coming back home last year, as of the recording of this podcast, was so just like awakening for me to reflect and have me really think about what travel means to me and for me in my life. And I will say since then, it has been this incredible awakening, for lack of a better word, of seeing travel and witnessing my relationship to travel specifically change so much, where what started initially as this beautiful tool that I leaned on to help me connect with myself, to help me really become more confident and comfortable in my own skin. I remember taking my first solo trip and being so terrified to have dinner by myself because 3-4 years ago when I started on this journey, I was so uncomfortable with who I was and I didn't know how to be alone. And I had all the social anxiety that I feel like had been following me for years that I never got a chance to look at. And here comes travel, this gift of being alone out of my 6+ year relationship, and it really helping me find myself. And for the first couple of years, it was the most amazing, fulfilling teacher for me in helping me learn and experience and come to find myself in a way. And I don't know if it was the last solo episode that I did on this season in this podcast, some thoughts and memories are being blurred here, but in one of my podcast episodes for sure, if not in this season, definitely in the last one, where I talk about how my relationship has evolved and changed, because what started as a tool, travel, trips, vacations, to help me find myself quickly became something that I used as like a safety blanket in a way of helping me escape and run away. Every time I felt uncomfortable being at home, or if there was something that was getting kind of stirred up within me, I knew like, oh, well, I could just book a trip and go away for a weekend and unplug and disconnect from whatever kind of things are going on here and just get away, reconnect with myself, come back. And, all things considered, I think that could be a beautiful tool as well. If you think about it, looking at something like a quick trip or something to, again, disconnect, come back to yourself, but done enough times and done unconsciously, which I can reflect and say for myself is something that I definitely started to do. It could be a tool for escapism in a way, or for continuing that ever elusive search for meaning or fulfillment outside of yourself, which we know can never really give us that fulfillment. And so that's what that has evolved to be for me, in especially the last year, coming off of the big expansive world trip that I took the tail end of 2023, beginning of 2024. So the last year of my life, I haven't had much experiences or opportunities to travel as frequently as I have been used to, because money has gotten tighter. I also have entered a beautiful relationship where, honestly, I don't want to solo travel anymore. I want to spend my time with my partner. He has been such an incredible, expansive light in my life, and I now find myself just wanting to share in so many moments and experiences with him. So the need to want to run away or do these things on my own has just dissipated. But with that has my relationship with travel evolved as well, in that I now don't necessarily see it as something that I lean on to, recharge, or I need for myself to reconnect with myself or experience something. And I will just say that this recent trip that I took to Colombia with Lewis, my boyfriend, I'm still really sitting with it, because it literally has just been less than a day since I got home from my trip. Like, I got home last night, 7 p.m. It's almost 4 p.m. as of the recording of this episode. So it hasn't even been 24 hours since I got home. So everything is just still so fresh for me. But this trip, this most recent trip I took, 9-10 days total that I was in Colombia with Lewis, has really, I think, just been, I want to call it like a milestone vacation or experience for me to really see how far I've come, to see how far my perspective has shifted on how I view a trip, how different areas and things that I've been placing weight on, or I might have placed weight on in the past, have really completely just transformed into something, what I want to say, feel just deeper and bigger than myself, that I'll get into in more detail shortly here from my trip. So yeah, there's a lot there. There's a lot that I think I want to touch on in this dialogue with you guys, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll just get into it now, because now I'm like having more thoughts infiltrate my brain, and I don't want to stray too far from this topic because, again, it just feels so timely. So Lewis and I decided to go to Colombia to visit his family. I don't know if I shared in this season so far, but Lewis, my partner, he is from Bogota, and he immigrated here to the States when he was 18. So about 12 plus years ago or so. And we had met last year, so beautifully and organically at our gym locally, and just like immediately had this connection, have started dating. And since a year ago, because quite literally last week we celebrated our 1-year anniversary of being together, in the course of a year, I've gotten the opportunity, the beautiful opportunity, to visit his home country 3 times. Our trip, this last recent trip, has been the 3rd time we've gone together. And every time I go and I visit, it's been beautiful. But I can see how my travels there, and just, again, my trips in general, have evolved, especially this last time around. So we have been in need of just a getaway. I think the both of us. He has been very stressed at his job, business manager at this company locally here in our town. And I myself, I think, I don't know, as I'm sitting and recording this and just reflecting on the last couple weeks, I don't think I realized how badly I needed just a change of scenery. And so this is where I want to say that travel this time around has been a gift that I didn't know that I needed. And going into this trip, too, no expectations at all, outside of the fact that we're just going to go and spend this time together. And it was also our 1-year anniversary of dating. So I will say the only expectations set were just to have a beautiful celebratory getaway to just celebrate us for the first couple of days being there. But as a whole, I will say this was a trip that I really, compared to like all my other vacations or trips that I've taken, there were really no other expectations around like, we're just going to go. And maybe it was because I've already gone to Colombia a couple times and we were going to familiar places that I've already seen. So we spent the first leg of our trip in Cartagena along the coast, which we got the chance to experience the first time that we went last year over the summer. Beautiful, beautiful coastal city, historic city, so much to see and do, lovely. Second half of our trip, 5 days in Bogota, which is his home city. And again, have also been and experienced it. So there's an aspect of novelty here that I want to touch on that I think is a really interesting factor when you consider going somewhere and experiencing something new for the first time, right? Like you could think about any vacation you've ever taken and you're visiting a city or a place or an experience for the first time. And there is just this inherent energy of like mystery and surprise and intrigue that just comes from newness. Like you've never seen something before. Maybe you have some expectations, maybe you don't. More often than not, you end up being surprised because you don't know what to really like fully, like you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what this place is going to bring. You know, some people may plan, I mean, whatever the vacation is, you're going to Italy or like Cape Town, whatever destination, you might have a preconceived notion, but you can't really envision it unless you're there. So there is this element of almost like being forced into surrender because you almost kind of have to, because like, how can you not surrender in a way, if you're really being met with something for the first time? And if you tend to have more controlling tendencies, like yours truly sometimes, there could be that urge or necessity to want to like formulate or like push and mold the experience to maybe be something that you envisioned in your mind, which I've experienced in the past for sure. But there could also, on the flip side, just be this like, well, I don't really know what to expect. So like, again, that full kind of forced, nudged surrender moment, which is really beautiful if you can embrace it. So novelty in a way is a really beautiful thing, or it can be. And I think that aspect, this element of surprise and newness, is what really gives a lot of people so much of that like expansive energy that they may feel when they go on vacation, because they might be visiting something that's so different or beautiful, and just, yeah, whatever kind of like sentiments you want to place into an experience. I think that, at least for me, has been a lot of what has given me fulfillment. When I travel to a destination or a place, it's like, oh my God, this is so cool because it's different and novel and whatever. And so because I didn't have that this time around, not that I wasn't excited for the trip, but there was just a neutrality. Like, I really can't describe it. It's like, I don't know, if you have family living in a different place, like across the country or a different state, if you visit them maybe once a year or something, like, you kind of like, sure, you might be excited, but it's not like the same excitement like you might be visiting them for the first time, like if they moved to a completely new state or a city or bought a new house. You know what I mean? So that was kind of the energy for me going into it, which I think really helped me to, again, not go into it with any, preconceived conceptions of what this is going to be like. I kind of already definitely had removed myself from, like, in a way, that element of surprise, if we want to call it that. That being said, with that, not completely feeling like, okay, we're just going to see the same things that we've already seen, because we also didn't have a plan. Like, we went into this vacation and we're like, well, we're just going to take it as it comes. We knew we were going to spend the first 5 days near the coast. We knew that the second half of the trip was going to be in the city with his family. But beyond that, like, there wasn't a real agenda. And I will say, for someone that's done many trips and has traveled to different countries under different circumstances, whether that's by myself or in a group setting or for like a retreat experience, I've seen both sides of the spectrum and have experienced both. The trips where I had absolutely no agenda and things just unfolded on their own, and the trips where I have planned or I've had a very strict itinerary. And if you guys have traveled yourself, you might have some relatability on this topic, or maybe you just heard people talk about it. And everyone's different. There are those people that need to have the buttoned up tight itinerary and need to like do these things and follow it accordingly. And then there are those people that just like literally take every moment as it comes and just go with it. What I have gathered from my experiences is the more open that the schedule is, that I can be, the more fulfilling ultimately, and just peaceful and easeful, even though it might sound counterintuitive because you're like, oh my God, you don't have a plan. How could this be more peaceful? Because it could be chaotic if you don't know what you're doing. But it actually, for me, I'm realizing more and more, is what I end up inherently feeling. Like, if I'm totally open to something unfolding, if there's no itinerary or if it's just a loose one, then it's like this ultimate freedom, right? And a blank canvas can be intimidating for a lot of people, whether it's quite literally you're about to like paint a painting on a canvas, or if you're starting a project or going into a trip or whatever, and there's no plan or no structure, it could be a little overwhelming. And for someone like me, and if you're someone too that likes a little bit of structure and control in their life, that could especially be scary. But the more that I've just opened myself up to like really allowing surprise and inspiration to be present in the moment, the more I realize that that is literally what it's all about. Because again, you could go into any experience and you have this idea of what you're going to do, of what the day is going to be. But then what if you get to that moment that you're supposed to do that thing, go see that museum, do that experience, whatever, and you're just not feeling it? Or I don't know, you were met with another opportunity that you actually wanted to do, but you're like, wait, no, but I already committed to this. It just kind of gets in the way of the present moment, ultimately. And so with this trip, what both Lewis and I realized, well, actually, we didn't even realize it until like after the fact, that we didn't really have anything planned. And because of that, we had our days just completely openly open, which again, I feel like for most of the trips that I've taken have kind of been rare, because usually, you have these like bucket items things that you want to see, especially when you're going to a new destination. You're like, oh, I need to see this. I need to do this experience. This city is renowned for this. This is the best restaurant that this friend recommended, so I have to do it. And you have this laundry list of things that you feel like you need to do. And the more that I've put myself in those situations, the more disappointed that I was. I specifically remember this was, I want to say 3 years ago. I was subleasing for a month in St. Pete, Florida. And I had the opportunity to spend a weekend in Georgia. I remember my best friend was getting married. So I rented a car, drove from St. Pete to Savannah, and then the following day drove down to St. Simon's Island for her wedding. But I had the day in Savannah. And because I only had a day, and because it was Savannah, Georgia, which everyone shares is like the most beautiful, quaint little southern city, I felt this pressure that I need to absolutely do the most because I only have 24 hours and I need to maximize my time there, right? So already expectations like up the wazoo, like insane. I had a whole list of stuff and I was posting on Instagram and it's like, who's been to Savannah? Send me recommendations. And like so many people reached out with like, literally like, I shit you not, guys, like DMs and Apple Notes and like lists and lists and lists of restaurants and things to do. And I didn't realize it in the moment, but I was so consumed and overwhelmed, not to mention me trying to like take a freaking Instagram photo and story in every single moment because I felt like I needed to capture it and like update the world on all these experiences and whatever. And basically, long story short, what ended up happening on that trip for me was me crying in my hotel room at the end of the day because the restaurants that I thought I wanted to eat at or whatever were all booked out and like nothing was working. And I got into that state where I was like so overwhelmed and anxious because I didn't know what to do at that point. All my plans have failed. And I was so distraught that I ended up just getting takeout and eating it in my hotel room. And I was just so sad. I was like, this is like the shittiest trip ever. And I essentially like ruined the trip for myself because I was allowing no room to just be like guided and led in the moment. I was going into that experience with not only a plan, but like the most impossible, overwhelming plan to achieve like all these things from my list that like weren't going to happen and they didn't. So I share that because one, if you're listening, you're someone who tends to overplan, or two, just like, again, set expectations going into experiences. This was probably the light bulb wake up moment for me that over planning or even just having a loose plan could not be it. And so from that, I've tried to be more mindful and going into trips, just allow things to happen, leave room for just being inspired and guided in the moment. And there have been more lessons that have come up for me for sure with that. But I think this trip around that I had taken, there was really none of that at all. And it's so beautiful now that I'm sitting here and just like thinking back on it. That was the move. Like that was the thing to do, was to like literally have no plans, because every single day we woke up and we're like, what do you feel like doing today? Want to go to the gym? Want to go to this place, see that? And again, maybe because we've already been to these cities that we've seen a lot, we didn't feel that urgency or need to want to sightsee so much. So I think that helped a lot. But I think there was just a deeper level of surrender here, you guys, that it's taken me for sure a few years to learn, but I feel like, oh, maybe I finally nailed it down in this trip. I think what's also helpful is being in Colombia, where I can't necessarily speak the language, at least not yet. I have been practicing my Spanish, but it's still been very difficult. I'm with Lewis, who obviously is from Colombia, so he just inherently knows better, knows best, because he's from the country, he speaks the language, he knows the nuances of the culture, and there's a lot. I will just say, like, as a general note, you have to be aware when you're in Colombia, because it's not the safest country, and especially depending on what neighborhoods you might find yourself in, like, you really, that like intuition awareness piece in your body has to be online, because it's definitely a space where you just have to be, again, conscious of your surroundings and the people you're interacting with, because it definitely could be more dangerous. And so there was this, again, unexpected force or nudge from God to like fully surrender even more, to just letting Lewis take the trip, totally run with it. Pick every restaurant, pick every experience, pick where we're going, pick what freaking streets we're walking on, Ubers we're taking. I mean, I had nothing to do with this trip. And again, the part of me that typically tends to want to have a say in stuff, especially on something that involves traveling, because that is like my most soul fulfilling thing to do. I'm surprised and proud, actually, to say that it wasn't so hard for me to do this time around. Lewis and I had ended up taking a trip to Charleston a couple months ago, just like a quick little weekend trip, him and I. And that was a big learning lesson for us, as that was an experience for me where I really felt my, let's see all the things, let's see all the sights come online. And it really prevented us from just being more inspired in the moment and just take things very organically. It caused a lot of friction on the trip. A lot of reflections for me afterwards where I'm like, dang, like I went into that one like really thinking like we're going to get the most out of Charleston because we're only here for 3 days. Similar to that Savannah experience I had 3 years ago. Like it was one of those. And so this time around, coming off of Savannah 3 years ago, experiencing my short stint in Charleston a couple months ago, there was definitely more of an awareness of like, Evelina, just like really take the backseat on this one. Like let Lewis drive. Let him call the shots. It's okay. Really like practice the communication you've been working on so much in your relationship here. And it all happened. Like it all unfolded. I stepped back. I really just surrendered and softened. Let my boyfriend be in his masculine energy while I was in my soft, flowy feminine. And it was lovely. Like it was magical. Like I was taken care of every time. And the less that I resisted, the less that I really just like felt like I needed to do something, the more I let go of these like plans. There were a few moments where I felt like, oh, maybe we should do that and this. And I kind of had set a little plan in mind. Very quickly, I'm like, no, just like let go of this, like trust. And it just like all kind of unfolded so perfectly. And I can give even just little detail moments where there was a morning, I think this was, what's today? Wednesday, as of the recording of this podcast. I think this was Monday. We were going out to get breakfast. And I already had this like preconceived little like idea of exactly what I wanted for breakfast. And the more that the morning unfolded, it turned out that like that breakfast idea was not going to happen. Like I wanted to get this like delicious soup, because soup is super huge in Colombia. And I think growing up Polish and living on soup every single day, I think that's just like a very nostalgic, homey thing for me, that I love me a good bowl of homemade soup. And in Colombia, like, oh, you guys, if you've ever been, you know. And if you haven't, I'm just putting this on everyone's radar. Whether you're a soup lover or not, you're going to be if you visit this country, because their cuisine is like heavy on soups, but like good ones with like so much meat and potatoes, like the good hearty soups. And there's this delicious like beef rib potato soup that they typically have for breakfast. And I had it, I think, at one point last week, and I knew like I have to experience this soup again before we leave. So anyways, I set my expectations on this soup for breakfast, and the morning was just unfolding to move along pretty quick. And it turned out that we might not have ended up getting this soup. And I found myself getting so disappointed and like so sad and wanting to control a little bit and contort different things and situations. And ultimately, what ended up culminating out of that situation is just a really, really beautiful, honest conversation with Lewis. And this is something that I just want to share. I've been practicing a lot in our relationship and just in general in life, because of course, intimate relationships for me, and I probably believe for everyone, is your vessel, your space to practice these patterns, these tendencies, these habits, whatever that you have amidst yourself, amidst other people, in such a, just like intimate personal space with your romantic person that really can transpire into life in general. And for me, communication has been so huge. Like learning how to articulate my feelings, learning how to speak patiently without projecting, processing, my emotions in real time. Like this has been so much work. And I will say that Lewis has been like, oh my gosh, the most safest, beautiful space for me to just really work on this and cultivate this. And it helps, especially that he's not reactive and so much more patient than I am, that he allows for me to just like work through this stuff. And so I will say that this vacation for us was a real beautiful, I don't want to say testing ground, but just opportunity to put into practice so much of what we've been working on while at home in real time as we're making decisions on where to go and what to eat. And again, I think it just helped so much that I wasn't trying to drive the ship and I just backed off a lot in this. That things were just so much more easeful. And in this moment with my soup expectation, I simply just communicated afterwards when I found myself getting frustrated that I'm disappointed. I'm not going to eat the soup. And what ended up happening was I did end up getting my soup, but I think it was because of this just really simple 2-minute dialogue moment where I just really simply expressed myself, and he expressed to me where he was coming from on why we were, pressed on time and why he wanted to go see his mom and whatever, those little details aside. It was this very conscious, aware moment for me where I'm like, I was feeling all the things inside. I recognized what I was doing. I'm like, oh shit, I did that thing where I placed expectations again. But then instead of like getting angry or lashing out on him, like maybe I would have in the past or in a past relationship, or internalizing stuff and maybe not even saying anything and then just building up resentment, I simply just opened myself up to speaking and telling him like, hey, I actually am really disappointed because I really like set my mind to eating this freaking delicious soup and we're not going to do it. And we talked about it for 2 minutes and like we reached a resolution that would have been so much harder if we both wouldn't have communicated that in a way. So I think this vacation for me too, for us, was just such a, lovely way to get closer in a lot of ways because we were able to navigate in real time these things that normally I think would bring like a little bit of like testy energy. If you guys are in an intimate relationship or have ever been in one, you know that when it comes to those moments of you wanting something, the other person wanting something else, or you not agreeing on something, like it could breed some like good friction. And there were plenty more moments like that where there was either mild disagreement or, a little bit of compromise, I want to say, where it's like, okay, we could do this and then that. But again, it was just all so much more easeful than I would have experienced in the past. And so, I don't know. I really, as I'm just speaking and reflecting on this, and Louis and I had talked about it, I do feel like this experience brought us so much closer together. And I've shared this with friends, and I think I've shared this with him many times. Like, there's no more better testing ground, at least for me in my experience with a partner, than traveling together. Because it's in travel that like you are with that person, like really like this, so close and linked. You're making decisions in real time. You're having all your preferences and comforts and rituals and routines unearthed. You're spending every single second together, sharing private space, all of that if you have any shit that is within, any triggers, any discomforts, like those are going to come up in trips. And I've had plenty experiences with ex-partners and even with Louis, like trips that we've taken ourselves to, that those discomforts have been unearthed. So I think this trip around really was just such a beautiful testament to how much work we've been doing internally with ourselves, how much work I have been doing on myself with just really practicing communicating, being more patient, really stepping aside again with that tendency that I have tend to want to call the shots and control, again, that like more heady masculine energy. I was definitely a more flowy feminine girly on this one, you guys. So I'm just sharing that. I feel so good about that. And really my intention coming out of that trip and back as I'm reacclimating, doing this podcast again and, going to my coffee shops and being on my routine. It's like, how do I maintain that energy? Because I think there's so much around, you go on these experiences, you go on these trips, these vacations, and you feel all these things. You're removed from your everyday stresses. You're maybe more open to surprise or spontaneous adventures because you're doing experiences and stuff you normally wouldn't do, that you come back home. And then for a lot of people, it's like, okay, now it's like an overnight switch to like back to exactly where, you were before you went on this trip. And then you lose all that, maybe, I don't know if we want to say magic that happened during your experience. And I think in a lot of ways, gosh, I could see this in both ways. Like the version of me, and maybe for a lot of us listening, who use travel as an escape, because there's that slippery slope where you go on these vacations or you take these trips, you unplug, you ignore all your problems that were at home, you momentarily escape on this trip, but then you come back to reality and then all that shit just comes right back in your face. And you're like, well, that was great. I put all my happiness and expectations on this thing outside of myself, which was this trip. But now I'm back to like the grind that I wanted to avoid. And I did temporarily, but it's back. So that's, I will say, like the slippery slope of travel that a lot of us, I myself, have gotten caught up in so many times. But then there's the other side, that there is so much beauty that could come, whether it's a trip or like any experience. And I want to be mindful of how I say this, because I think there could be, and I'm definitely guilty of this, like placing so much weight in the travel, in the trip of it, like being this thing, right? Where we forget that like we could find that in our everyday. Like I don't have to go to Colombia to experience this like freedom and like surrender that I did with like Lewis. I could do that here at home in my everyday. But I feel like this trip was a gift in a way to help me see what that freedom could look like. Yes, of course, it was removed from the context of home where, you get comfortable and things are the same every day. But in a way, being temporarily taken out of that context, lovingly forced by God, the higher power that be, in whatever mysterious, miraculous ways, to like let go, because I really didn't have a choice. Like, don't speak the language, don't know my way around this country. Like I have to depend on my partner. And so I think it was a foreshadowing and a real, I think, again, I want to use the word gift to show me that I can have this too at home in my everyday here. Yeah, maybe it took this trip to show me that, but I think this is maybe we could say the miss that a lot of people tend to do, and that I myself have done in the past too, where I go on this trip, I have all these experiences, but then I come home and I feel like I can't have those anymore because, well, this isn't Colombia or Lisbon or Cape Town or whatever. And so what is my tiny suburban Connecticut town going to bring me? Because it doesn't have the food or the sights or the people or the culture that this city had. And as I'm sharing this and just like reflecting on it, I'm realizing how skewed that perspective could be. Because yes, objectively, when you look at it, sure, the food might be so much better in these countries or the people or the culture. But, and this is a concept I'm really actively wrapping my mind around because I've talked about this in the podcast before, but my beautiful lighthouse group with my mentor, Ashley, that I do bi-weekly here has really been planting the seed for me to look beyond these, we can call it like facades of things, whether it's food or people, experiences, travels, trips, and really seeing everything as the same if we want to think about it. Like objectively, if you zoom out, everything is different, right? Like, obviously, Colombia is so different from Connecticut, and the experiences and all that are so different. But if you zoom out even further and you really dive deeper to understand that all that stuff, whether it's the way that it looks, the way that it feels, smells, whatever, it's kind of actually all the same. And that could be really threatening to our egos listening. So what do you mean? Like, you can't get the same experience in Italy that you can here. Like, what the heck are you talking about? But I think this is the slippery slope for a lot of people, and something that I've definitely been grappling with myself around that idea of placing weight in external things. Because yes, while on the surface, something could look different and could bring you so much joy and fulfillment, it is still something outside of ourselves, you guys. And the more that we think that once we achieve that thing that's outside of ourselves, the more we're going to be fulfilled, the more we're essentially just fooling ourselves, if I want to say it that way, because nothing outside of ourselves is ever going to bring us what we think it is. Because you think about it, like, you're in an, shitty relationship or a bad job or unhappy with where you are, and you think like, okay, when I get that next job, when I get that thing. And if you're not conscious about it, you're always going to keep thinking that that next thing is going to bring you that joy and that satisfaction. And so what do? You're in a shitty job. You leave that shitty job and you go to a better job. Okay, it's great. It's fantastic. That boss was disrespecting you, but now your boss is nicer. Your coworkers are nicer. You're feeling better. The energy's great. Sure, everything's lovely. But then over time, new things start coming up, right? And then you start feeling that uncomfort again. And then you think like, okay, now I need the next job and the next job. And like you keep searching and you keep going. And this could be with anything, with relationships, with creative projects, with, again, travel. Like you keep thinking like, well, when I see the next thing and when I see the next thing, and you're always just feeling like that thing outside of you is going to bring you that joy. But then when you get it, you're met with the same problem. And this is like, oh my gosh, this is such a lesson that I've been actively looking at and unlearning and recognizing that ultimately anything and everything outside of yourself, again, whether it's the trip, the money, the job, the relationship, none of that stuff is ultimately going to fulfill you unless you first look within yourself and recognize that no matter what experience you have, no matter what things you have, unless you are fully content with yourself, happy and just at peace with who you are, all that you have in your present, current, everyday, none of that stuff actually ever matters. And I think this is so much where, whatever you want to call it, like the vanity and chasing the validation and all of those things come in, because we inherently are always searching for that, thinking that when we get here, then we're going to be, it's like, if this happens, then we will be whatever. And oh man, I mean, as I'm talking about this, guys, like I'm realizing like, shit, this is so hard. And it comes up in so many different ways. It's like body stuff, like when I lose this weight, then I will be happy. It's with money stuff, like when I make this amount of money, or when I pay off my debts, or when I blah, 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 then I will be. It's with partnership. It's with buying a house. It's with getting a job. It's like all these different areas of our lives are always just like little buckets, like categories, right? If you think about it that way, that test us and have us look at this. And I have been grappling with so much of that in my journey. If you guys have been following the season to date, you know that career and money for me are especially those opportunities in my life right now, because I for sure have been definitely thinking that when I make this amount of money, when my business reaches this, when I do this, again, in the context of career and money, then I will be XYZ. And so I think this search for sure of understanding change, understanding who I am, understanding more things related to my business and finances in this season of my life is really intended for me now to just really peel back all the layers, literally all of them, dismantle them all, and look at, where am I still placing weight outside of myself? Where am I still thinking that when I get this client or make this amount of money, I'm going to be happier? Because there's something here that I've been feeling that is still like sitting there. It's like, why do I still feel discontent? Why am I still asking questions? Why am I still searching and like, conducting these interviews to want to know? Because there's something that I haven't met within myself related to that. I've experienced this in so many different ways. There was a stint, I think I shared in my last solo episode, where I really, for several years outside of college, I was grappling with this as it relates to food and my body and nutrition and health and wellness. I got very literally orthorexic with controlling like workouts, and I was addicted to CrossFit and boxing and food, and feeling like, when I could just like perfectly curate my diet and look a certain way, then I will be happy. And I wasn't realizing at the time that all those things, the counting the calories and doing all the fad diets, were really just opportunities and areas for me to control, because I was very unhappy with who I was in that time. I was extremely insecure. I was in a very unfulfilling job. I just was at a real low in my life. And these vices that I leaned on, I thought were going to bring me the fulfillment, but they were ultimately just distractions for me for looking deeper within myself. And over time, as I let go of those controlling tendencies with food and just made peace with my body and myself, this was in the process of my journey of self-discovery, when I really found personal development 5-6 years ago, when this all kind of started, is when I just started feeling deeper peace for myself within. And so I feel like I overcame a lot of the stuff with body for sure. Relationships have been huge teachers for me. I've had 3 very serious longer term relationships in my life, and those breakups were like cataclysmic to my up levels and growth journeys in my life, like learning so much, especially when I ended a 6+ year long-term relationship. That was the one that really set me off on my deep self-discovery journey of realizing that, like, holy shit, like I'm placing so much weight on this partnership. I don't know how to be alone because I feel like I need my boyfriend everywhere. Otherwise, I don't know what to do with myself. So again, travel at that time in my life came in as a beautiful tool to help me really be comfortable in my own skin. But again, it wasn't long until then travel became that vice for me. And so to bring it back full circle and just to kind of land the plane on this trip, recent life revelations that I've been sitting with, it's so, I don't know, I want to use the word wholesome. Like it just feels so wholesome for me to say that detachment from the trip bringing me like what I need in the moment. In addition to also, as I talk about relationships, like now being with Lewis, like I don't feel that like grasping, desperate energy anymore like I might have in past partnerships. Like I am so perfectly whole and just feel so content on my own. But I also feel so beautifully supported and also whole with my partner. And whether I'm with him or without him, like I'm at peace. And that took many, many years for me to figure out. But it just feels so good and like, oh, wholesome to say that now. Because that was for sure a huge like lesson in life that I had to overcome. Relationships, body, food, recently grappling with the travel stuff and back to the business and the money stuff. This has for sure in the last couple of years been the area for me to look at. Like spirit is like, Evelina, let's literally unearth all the stories that you have placed, all the weight that you're still holding or have put into these buckets around what your profession looks like, what the number in your bank account has to say, and like, let's freaking burn it all down. So yeah, I don't know where I kind of went off on this tangent with, but maybe just all to say that this trip for me has been a deep moment of introspection and reflection for how far I have come. And coming off of the heels of this experience, again, less than 24 hours, I am in a state of just peace. Like I feel really, I just feel really good being home right now and actively too praying last night with Lewis. We were setting intentions for the rest of this week. we have a few days left of this week before it wraps up, going back into routine and all that, what we want the week to look like, or just, again, pray on. And something that I've been holding on my heart, and that I was really sitting with this morning as I was doing literally all the laundry and cleaning. I was just thinking, like, God, please help me to retain this presence that I experienced on the trip, which I haven't yet touched on, and I will in just a bit here before I wrap up. But this idea of presence that I experienced on the trip, but also this openness and this spontaneity that I could find here in Connecticut. Like, I don't need to go to Colombia to experience spontaneity and going with the flow and not having a plan. Like, you're in your routine every single day, you're going to work, you're doing the same thing. Like, how easy, how quick is it to just want to anticipate, or just not even want to, but you're just doing it unconsciously, like anticipating the same thing happening, going to go to the same coffee shop, going to take that same route to work, going to pick up the kids at this time, go to this practice, this experience, like the sameness, which again could be okay, but could also not be, depending on how you're viewing it. And I think for me, what I didn't realize in the last month is how much I kind of like was really depending on the routine, that if I didn't do something, it was like unnerving to my nervous system. Like, as an example, this podcast project has been evolving, the last several months as I've been launching episode, and it's been a cadence. Every Tuesday, I share an episode, sometimes on Friday, with my reflection episodes with Ashley, which have been so amazing. And I hope you guys have been enjoying them, because I've gotten some really sweet feedback on them. I love them. Another one coming up very, very soon, you guys, so stay tuned. But anyways, routine stuff, right? Like the podcast project for me, even certain stuff with work and like obligations and shoulds, I didn't realize how much they were like running the show subconsciously, a lot. Consciously too, but like really subconsciously, where like if I didn't post a podcast every Tuesday, or if I didn't do this thing, it just felt like, again, very unnerving. So breaking away from that, and again, using this vacation as a gift to help me reset, I didn't realize how much I needed it, because now I'm like, wow, I really was so dependent on that. And it kind of didn't start to feel very good. Like, it became a bit of a drudgery in the routine of like, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love this podcast. It's the recordings with these humans that light me up so much, and I'm so excited to share them with you guys. But in all honesty, like the post-processing, the editing, the like all that stuff, no fun. And over time, as I've been launching episodes every week, the like sparkle and the initial excitement has just faded a bit, because it's become a bit of a routine. And for anyone tuning in and listening that is really like a diligent routine person, like, no matter what, I must stick to this or else. Invitation. What if you broke away from your routine? Or what if you didn't do that thing? Like, what could that bring for you? And if that stirs up some discomfort for you, I welcome you guys to look at that, maybe sit with it, whatever your practice is, journal, talk to yourself, talk to a friend, I don't know, talk to a therapist. But try to identify like why is that bringing you discomfort? Because for me, I'll never forget, this was just recently, like a few weeks ago, where I expressed this in my bi-weekly little Lighthouse mastermind group, where I was like, guys, like I'm kind of losing steam on the post-production with the podcast. And Ashley, my mentor, was like, she challenged me. She's like, what if you never posted another episode again? And I was like, like, absolutely not. Like, it was like not a question in my mind. And it brought me so much discomfort, because I felt like I was letting myself down. Like, I made this promise to myself. I made this promise to my audience that I was going to do it. And it was just this like letdown that I wasn't willing to like accept and open myself up to. And we're now into Wednesday. Yesterday's podcast episode, which again, Pod Tuesday, new episode comes out every Tuesday. I haven't yet promoted it because I was traveling all day yesterday. Like, I literally was flying back with Lewis all day yesterday. JFK experience. If you guys have ever flown out of JFK, you know what a shit show that is. Car rentals, all that stuff. Like, our flight was at 7 a.m. We didn't fully like unplug from returning the car and traveling and all that until like 10 last night. So it was a good 15-hour day of travel. I didn't have a moment to think about anything else but, again, the trip, and didn't promote my podcast like I normally do on Tuesday. Told myself that today I would, but I didn't feel the pull to promote it again. And I think if this was me pre-vacation, having, again, just been so rigorous with my routine and my plan, I would have really been kicking myself about this, guys. I would have been feeling like, what a letdown and disappointment that I didn't, talk about this or do my routine. And I don't know, I just feel so okay with it. I'm like, it's not that big of a deal. I might do it tomorrow. Maybe I'll do it Friday. Maybe I won't do it at all, but it's okay. And so I don't know. It's just, I think this trip for sure, as I'm sharing this, I'm reflecting and realizing it's just been a big permission slip to let go of this should or have to or forcing energy that I've been putting on a lot of things that, again, I didn't realize have just become have to's or routines in my life. And so it's been a gift, and I'm really trying to be mindful moving forward of where can I further let off of the have to's and shoulds that I have integrated into my everyday. So huge takeaway. And again, maybe this sparks something for you guys listening if you're someone who's a creature of habit or a creature of change too, how this can maybe impact how you view, how you do certain things. Maybe the last thing that I'll touch on here, because I've been going off for a bit now, guys. But I think this is the biggest takeaway for me. And however this lands for you, I'd love to know. So maybe just, I'd love to hear from you guys always. Reach out to me. Let me know. But this idea of presence on this vacation. So this trip, Lewis and I were there for 9-10 days. But I think every day we checked in and we're like, why does it feel like we've been here for a month? Like, have you guys felt this when you're on a trip or you're just doing something and time just dissipates? Like, you don't know what day of the week it is, what time of day, like how long you've been doing something or in a place. That is what we literally felt like every single day. Like day 2 or 3, I was like, it feels like we've been here for weeks. And then towards the end of this trip, like again, the other day, I was like, oh my God, like it feels like we've been here for months. Like I don't know anything. My best friend's birthday, I forgot to text my best friend and wish her happy birthday last Tuesday, I think it was, because I just had no idea what day it was. Like time did not exist. It just completely disappeared, which whatever your beliefs in quantum physics and just life in general are, I personally don't even believe that time is a thing. It's definitely just an intellectual concept that we as humans have constructed. And I don't fully understand the counter side of it. Like, again, I hear people talk about it. I read up on the quantum physics aspect of it, but I'm truly a believer that time really isn't existent. But this was an opportunity for me to really see that because, guys, like it really felt like we were gone forever. And I love that feeling. And I realized how much I miss that feeling because it's just been so long. It was such a reminder for me that not focusing on time, not having a schedule, not looking at the clock is actually like the most liberating thing ever. Because whether you're working every day, you're clocking into a job or a schedule, or you just have things to do, or you're just in your routine where you have to do stuff every single day, how easy, right? Like how often do we check the time? How often do we look at the clock and think like, oh my God, like I need to be here at this time, or I need to do this thing, XYZ. And for me, and this trip with Lewis, there was none of that. Like we were so going with the flow that it just felt like it was the longest experience ever. And what better feeling than to be feeling already so high and expansive and just amazing from taking every moment in the present, but then also feeling like it's going on forever. Like, I don't know. If you guys have ever experienced that, you know that it's really the best feeling. And I've been there in those moments of my life where it just, gosh, whether it was super fast or super long, there was just this connection to the now. Your mind was not thinking ahead. Your mind was not thinking back. Like you were just in the moment. All anxiety dissipated on this trip, set of little moments here and there. No thoughts of the past were coming up. Again, maybe here and there as like I tried to maybe set expectations and all that. Overall, like it was such a reminder that when you are just focused on the task at hand, on the conversation that's happening, that is the most beautiful, magical thing. And just like, ooh, the whole body experience that you feel. It goes beyond whole body. It's like a spiritual experience that you feel is, I mean, beyond words. Like it just feels so good. It's that, again, I can't even describe it, but it's just that feeling of peace. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Like when you are in the present moment, you are in peace at all times, or I guess as long as you're in the present moment, because again, your mind is not thinking back or forward. It's just now, and there's nothing else but to be still and to just feel fully. And I felt that so much in conversations that I had with people. Again, granted, I don't speak Spanish, or I'm getting there. Slowly but surely, I'm getting there. But there were so many conversations that I had with, or tried to have with, Lewis's mom or his brother or his friends who don't really speak great English, but we were able to communicate and maybe a gift in that way that I wasn't able to understand the language, because it forced me to actually be more present in the moment. Because when you're learning a language, for anyone out there who's ever studied a language or is actively learning one, you know that when you're actively learning, you have to like be so conscious and like really paying attention, especially if people are talking fast. And my Spanish speakers out there, like, gosh, you guys can really go off. So like I really had to tune in and like pick up on certain words and then piece together statements in my mind. Like I think it really especially forced me to be even more present because I didn't understand the language, that it actually helped. Whereas if they were just like quickly communicating in English, when someone's just like talking and talking and talking, that like you just zone out because you're like, okay, like you hear them, but you don't. There was none of that. I couldn't even have any of that because I literally had to tune in and pay attention. So that was a gift, like truly so lovely. And then, something else too that I've been really sitting with and reflecting on is the beauty that came with things outside of myself on this experience. So specifically, Colombia as a whole, beautiful country, but an impoverished one for sure. And whether it was certain neighborhoods or experiences that we had where I just was faced with a reality that I forget exists beyond the comforts of my beautiful little tiny 1-bedroom apartment here in West Hartford Center, suburban Connecticut, that like the most of the world, like truly outside of our westernized little civilizations, people have it pretty rough, you guys. And the first time my eyes really became open to this, I will say I feel like I grew up with a little bit of this coming from Poland because, where my family comes from, little rural countryside Poland, not the easiest life. And even just like hearing my grandparents talk about their experiences and, just my own parents immigrating to this country and with my brother and I and starting from nothing, I feel like I grew up already with this awareness that like, it's tough out there. You got to hustle for what you want in life. I will say though, my parents really made it a point, and they did this so beautifully for my brother and I to have a way better life, an easier life than they had. So in a way I could see my experience as like growing up as a kid pretty spoiled, even though we grew up very like traditional lower-ish middle class. This being said though, zooming further out beyond Poland, which again, very westernized country in today's standards, other parts of the world, like me traveling to India a couple years ago, and especially being in a place like Colombia, like you see that most people in this world have it pretty rough, comparatively speaking to what we as Americans experience. So all this being said, to be faced with witnessing different people and circumstances, living situations, people on the street making a living, selling fruit or whatever the heck they're doing just to make, oh my gosh, like $1 a day to survive. Like it just takes you out of your world for a minute and has you I mean, it humbles you in a way if you really just distill it to that. Like, it really had me contemplating my personal life, and especially the moments where I've been feeling scarcity. And I've talked about my grapplings with business and money a lot in this season, where my business isn't profiting as much as it was in the first couple of years, and money has become more of a more difficult topic, I will say, less accessible to me for sure. But witnessing real, like, and I'm saying like life or death money struggles for most of the people that, again, we're just driving in Ubers and seeing on the streets, really just pulled me out of my circumstances and had me consider, damn, like, this could be so much worse. Like, I could be on the streets right now, or I could be working way harder, or like whatever, like whatever their circumstances are. Like, I might not have food today, but I have all that. And yet I forget that. And I don't know, I think I just share this because, I don't know, for me, it's hard to remember that unless I'm faced with contrasts sometimes. So I felt a lot of this when I was in India. I spent a month there doing my yoga training a year and a half ago. And India is, it really cracked my heart so wide open, because I had witnessed the most pure happiness with so many of the people there who literally had nothing. Like, literally living in little boxes in dirt roads on the side of the street. And it, again, just like zoomed me out of my circumstances. And I'm like, wow, like, you don't need much, if anything at all, to really find peace. If you really have it within yourself, and maybe if you have the bare minimum, your family, like a box underneath you just to freaking sleep on the dirt. Like, I don't know. It just, I remember leaving India so tender and just softened from witnessing everything that I did. And being in Colombia this time around really reminded me of that in a way that I for sure have forgotten. And I think reminded me of a way that felt very personal to me and a lot of the thoughts that I've been experiencing, because gratitude, you guys, that's what's coming to me. It just had allowed me to anchor into deeper gratitude for everything that I do have. And again, life is always just a perspective shift. You always have that choice to view things. I could continue viewing my circumstances as very hard and challenging, or I can shift into recognizing that I am so held, that I am so supported, that there are people out there that have it so much worse. And it's not to downplay my situation. It's not to think like, I don't have a right to even complain or anything like that, or feel whatever I'm feeling. I've been feeling a lot of that. But I think what this has left me with is maybe just like the motivation or the empowerment to like shift the perspective, to like see beyond what I'm seeing and recognize that, like, on the flip side of me feeling the scarcity lately, there is still so much abundance in my life. And I don't know, maybe that's where I want to end and wrap up. Abundance, presence, peace, unwinding, as my mentor Ashley likes to say, deeper stories where we're placing weight on external things, becoming closer to my partner, really practicing communication in real time. These are things that have been on the forefront for me, especially coming off of this trip. For this current edition of Evelina's Life Update solo episode in this one. So, I don't know. I think that feels like a good place to land. I've been going off for a bit, but it felt good, as always, to just turn on the mic and unload all these fresh thoughts and feelings for you guys. I hope, however, this episode is finding you, and whatever bits I shared have landed for you guys in whatever ways. And as always, I encourage you guys to let me know how this feels. And yeah, I hope this one finds you well. And I'll see when the next solo episode comes up for me, when it's called. I don't know if it'll have to take another trip to maybe unearth some of these deeper reflections. Hopefully not, because like I mentioned, something that I'm really going to consciously be reminding myself of moving forward is all those feelings that I've experienced the last 9 days, like they are accessible and at my fingertips now here. And yeah, I'm going to be holding that one close, and I hope that one lands for you guys especially. It's like the reminder that you don't need to venture somewhere expansive or have something big, or again, just whatever expectations you might be placing on something to really feel peace and presence. Although when you get a taste of that through an experience like a trip or an opportunity, whatever that may be, don't lose sight of that. Like, how can those things that come up for you related to these trips, experiences, opportunities that you get, how can they plant seeds for you that you can hold on to and implement in your everyday? Because I think so many of us tend to lose those things. I definitely have. Again, take the trip, go back to your everyday, you forget everything on the trip, and you're just focused on the grind that you have to get back into. How can you hold on to those things, you guys? Because everything in every moment is literally a gift. Like, it's literally a gift, only if you choose to see it that way. So I'm choosing to see this trip as my gift for presence and peace in my everyday, outside of any, again, experiences outside of myself, but just really trying to carry that forward in my everyday. So that's it, you guys. That's all for this one. I could keep going, but I'll pause. And I hope you enjoy, and I will catch you on the next one. Take care.